Yo, what's cracking, folks? Welcome to episode number 5 of the Painter and the Pixie.
Yeah.
And I am Jeremy Vassar. I'm joined, as always, by my lovely wife, Serena.
Hello.
And so we're going to talk a little bit about our completed January challenge in this episode.
All done.
And,
Welcome February.
Yeah, buddy. And also in this episode, I give a little bit of history of my own personal experience with painting and contracting because I am the painter in
Can I get into the details of the painter?
in this duo. So just kind of go over some of my experience with that, how I've gotten to where I am now, and kind of all my a few stories about that. We talked about some of my escapades in staircase staining, which is always a fun time.
And the joys of animals.
Yeah,
on the job site.
It was a lot of cats and dogs in this episode, as well as it relates to contracting, as well as general interaction.
Yeah, we give a couple of dog training tips, little fun things to do, some games to play with your pets.
Yeah, so good stuff all around. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, please enjoy episode number 5 of The Painter and the Pixie.
This is only the beginning.
All right, ready?
Ready?
What you're going to hear about today is nothing short of a miracle.
Well, I don't believe it.
Let's find out. Ready, set, go.
Yo, what's up, girl? How you doing?
Hi, happy Sunday.
Happy Sunday. It's the Super Bowl Sunday, and we are in not too far outside of Philadelphia, so it's a big day for the birds.
Yep.
So, and as this releases, it'll be post Super Bowl. So,
They will know the winner.
yeah, congratulations for Eagles fan if they
If they do
won, and sorry for your loss if they did not. So, yeah, but so we're pumped to be here on Sunday. We've had another kind of lazy morning. It's been nice.
It has been nice.
Folks, we completed our January challenge. So yeah. So we got in all 12 yogas, and I did a double shot. I did like 2.5 hours of yoga on last Monday.
I have not even done that at that studio. That's a lot.
Yeah. So I don't think I'd be doing that again, but it wasn't too bad.
But then you got it out of the way. You were done.
I was all
and
set.
I pushed it to the end. Wednesday was the last day,
Right.
and I did it the last class on Wednesday.
Right. And then we made it through the no booze, no sugar, all that jazz, and feeling good. We had a few drinks at the end of this week, which was nice.
Yeah, had a little celebratory meal, a little bit of fun times.
Yeah, we had I guess, I still don't like the word cheat meal, but
Yeah, celebratory meal. We indulged a little bit more.
I like that. A celebration meal. That's better. That's better.
Yes.
So we got
Because cheating, I don't like that either. You're like, as if someone's being cheated, and you know what? No one really is. It's just you and food.
it's just
It's totally okay
It's
to
okay.
indulge once in a while and enjoy. So we indulged.
Yeah, it was good. We had some bacon cheeseburgers, some French fries, and I had some ice cream last night too.
I forgot you had ice cream also.
yeah, and I think, and then I had a few gin and tonics, but spaced out. It wasn't like all at once. But I think I could have done with less gin and tonic and
surprising.
less and or no ice cream.
Oh yeah, the ice cream. I mean, like you have a big bacon cheeseburger, and you had like a mountain of fries, which
I could have eaten 2 of those bacon cheeseburgers.
That's amazing.
They were so good, so good.
well, for not having any processed food for over a month,
Yeah.
and then nothing like that, so it's gonna light up all your taste buds and
Ooh, it was
everything in your
good.
brain. So all of that plus ice cream, that's huge. That's just so much. That's just like it makes me think about your old cheat meals. Where how did you even eat all of that?
It was a lot of dedication.
Yeah.
So
Because you have to be dedicated to consume that much.
it was a thing.
Yeah.
But no, and I don't feel. I was going to ask you about this because we try and intersperse nutritional nuggets throughout. I think I had, after training on Thursday night, we had. I think you had a beer and I had like 2 beers because that was
Yeah,
our first
just
night that
one.
we could.
Cheers.
Yeah, and I feel like this would make sense, but I was way hydrated, so I didn't have any kind of negative repercussions from drinking at all. I just felt like,
Like you didn't feel hungover or have a headache or anything.
I mean, it was only 2 beers, but I didn't feel like sluggish or anything.
Yeah.
And I feel like that
That's
would
good.
be a result of also being super hydrated.
Well, part of that for sure, definitely being hydrated, because we talked about, I don't know what, a couple weeks ago, we talked about drinking half of your body weight in ounces of water every day. And you're totally at that point, and
Yep.
sometimes more, because like you're drinking kombucha right now, which kind of like some people say counts against, but I think it kind of still counts towards your water. There's not enough caffeine in there to cause a problem.
Right.
But anyway, and then you had your 2 beers, but you were already really well hydrated for a month. It's not like you were partially hydrated the whole time because you had been drinking relatively regularly and dehydrating yourself that way, and coffee, and so that makes a huge difference for sure.
Yeah. So, but it's been most enjoyable, and I think, I'm definitely not gonna do. I don't think what we did last night.
Yeah, we kind of just wanted to have a little celebration, kind of go a little more all out. Now, you went
Yeah.
more all out than I did.
A
I kept it
skosh.
a little bit more conservative for myself. Had the little cheeseburger and
Well, so you had less.
some French fries.
You had less sugar because you went with
No
vodka.
ice cream, and I didn't have any sugar in my mixer. Right. It was
What
just
did you do? Did you
vodka and Pellegrino.
Pellegrino, and then did you put some stevia in there?
I put 3 drops of stevia in there.
How's
yeah.
that?
I like it. I
And
think
you
it's
use lime
good.
in there too?
Yeah, I do a squeeze of lime,
Okay.
quarter of a lime in the regular glass, and then an ounce of vodka, and then
So it's almost like a vodka soda,
Yeah.
but with not some gross mixer in there.
and then just did a couple drops of stevia to kind of give it a little bit of. It's not even with 3 drops of stevia in that mixture. It's not even really sweet. It's just a little bit more smooth.
Right. Yeah.
And that's what
it's-
I'm going for.
Well, and that's what a lot of the cocktail mixers are for, is to take the edge off
Mm-hmm.
of. That's really what mixed drinks were all about. Is that you're trying to take the bitterness off of the alcohol or with some sweet. But man, I was feeling I used the Fever Tree tonic water, and tonic. I mean, there's a decent amount of sugar in there, and I was like feeling that more. I was like,
Yeah, because that's a lot. I mean, if you have 3 gin and tonics, that's a decent amount of sugar from that tonic. Plus, I don't even know how much of the ice cream you had. I took a little taste off. You had like the lid sitting on the counter, and I tasted that. And as soon as it was in my mouth, I felt like whoosh, this flood of sugar. And it was like, the tiniest little amount.
yeah.
Like, okay, I feel that. I don't need any more right now.
Well, we were watching that. What's that show you've been watching this week?
Oh, I was watching a cooking show. It's called.
It's the one with the scientist and the.
Yeah, I think it's called Food Delicious Science. Food
Okay.
Delicious Science.
Okay, because I watched a little bit of the first episode with you, and they were saying
It's fascinating.
it's like you're the reason we like ice cream and certain things like that is because it's a perfect 50-50 blend between fat and sugar.
Yeah.
Because like your body's set up, because sugar was such a rarity in the wild, like you'd find honey or syrup or like maple syrup or something, berries, different fruits. So it was a huge reward hit to find anything sugary in the wild, like way back in the day when we were hunter gatherers. And then like fat was also highly valued because it's a great source of nutrition and calories and fuel. And so like then if you combine those two with 50-50, which is like that's why ice cream's so awesome.
Yeah, well, and he also they talked about that a little bit, but in the actual show they talked about how the only other food that has basically a 50-50 caloric split, that when you're saying 50-50 you mean it was 50% of calories from sugar, 50% of calories from fat. The only other food that they know of in the wild that's natural is human breast milk.
Right.
So they're talking about how these types of combinations hit all these wonderful pleasure centers in the brain because that's most humans' first meal. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's like really, really, really well balanced to hit all those light centers in your brain.
So good.
That's why ice cream is so appealing, and these other sweet things with sugar and fat make it really, really nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And for those that are curious as far as like what ice cream I went with last night.
Oh yeah, why don't you tell us?
Well, so normally I like Ben and Jerry's
Mm-hmm.
occasionally. And we have some other awesome ice cream places around, like OwowCow, which
Mm-hmm.
is if you're going to go somewhere, that's the business. But so I got Ben and Jerry's. Usually I like what's it called, milk and cookies,
I guess so.
but they didn't have that
Their
one.
version of cookies and cream.
So I went with that's a little bit different because there's like cookie dough in it and stuff. So
Okay.
just saying.
Didn't realize.
I would think I went with I think it was half baked.
Yeah, you said half baked.
I think it was half baked.
So like,
something
was it
that.
like brownie and cookie dough?
Brownie and cookie dough?
Oh wow,
It was pretty good.
that's awesome.
Pretty solid.
That's like a pretty.
And I
good
didn't eat all of
processed
it. I
food
ate
meal.
like, a little bit. But after I went through it, I was like, I'm not going to feel awesome later.
Yeah,
So,
too much sugar. But and it's kind of nice to feel crummy afterwards because you're like, all right.
All right. Well,
I'm a
I
real
still
person.
I was like, you know what? After all of that, I could have gone with my ice cream substitute, which again is I do cinnamon applesauce with no sugar added. It's all organic and so on and so forth. And then a big glob of unsweetened, just organic peanut butter.
Yeah.
And
that's interesting.
it's not ideal,
It's not the same as ice cream.
but I like it, and it's not
good.
it doesn't jack me up as much as ice cream, and it's
there's
like
way less sugar. And
Yeah.
the sugar that is there is naturally occurring, and you've got fiber still from the apples, which
Right.
helps your body metabolize it a little bit slower. It doesn't just hit your brain like ice cream.
I was like, no, I
Sugar.
could have done that. So, but anyway, so we were chatting a little bit about what we kind of want to give our listeners in the course of the program and so forth. And the first 4 episodes, we've talked a lot about nutrition and things from your world, you being a nutritional therapist. And then,
And our January challenge, we talked a lot about, had a lot to do with some nutritional sort of focuses as well. So that's kind of like naturally lends us to talking more about nutrition.
yeah, which was a lot of yoga, nutrition, and not eating things that
Pixie
we
style
Yes,
things.
yes, all of that. And the show being called The Painter and The Pixie, I thought it'd be good to maybe bring in some more of my stuff from my respective domain of mastery and so forth.
Yeah, so I thought it'd be fun if you could tell us a little bit about kind of how you got started in the contracting painting world. To give us a little bit, a lot of our listeners have heard my background, some of my background in history, but I don't think we've really talked much about yours. So I kind of want to let today be a little bit more of Jeremy Rambles and gives us some history.
More insight about the painter.
Yeah.
So my buddy Chris, who's a great painter, invited me into this Facebook forum. And it's like one of the biggest, I think it's the painters chat room or something, but it's one of the biggest forums on Facebook for painters.
Okay,
And it's like painting houses and commercial painting and things like that, not like
artist painting.
Not artist painting, just to be clear. So, and then someone posted a question on there about like when people started painting, and then people were posting like what age they started. So that kind of got me thinking about what we're going to talk about on the show is when I started. So I started working maintenance at an alternative school when I was 15. And my brother also started when he was 15, but he's 2.5 years older than me. So when I started, he was like 17-ish. And then he started being the foreman of the paint crew. So during the summers, a lot of the painting would get done in the classrooms because the kids weren't there.
Right, that makes
So we'd
sense.
repaint a lot of the buildings and a lot of the inside of the buildings, and that was kind of my first exposure to painting. And working maintenance, you really wanted to be on paint crew because usually it was one of the best jobs to get because other stuff was digging holes and there's far worse things you could be
for sure.
end up doing, like construction, or we'd have to do actually my first 2 weeks of maintenance, there had been a flood in Fort Washington, and about 6 to 8 feet of sewage swept through the administrative building. So my brother and I, our first 2 weeks of that summer was literally clearing out debris that was
gross.
soaked in sewage.
Yeah.
And my mom would make us, she'd pick us up from work, and then she would make us strip in the front hallway of our house. And then we'd have to go right upstairs. She would go take all the stuff right down the laundry.
That's awful.
And so yeah, that was good. But then after that, we got to paint.
Yeah, so painting was much better than that type of cleaning.
It was way better. And so my maintenance boss, Ed, was a really good painter. He worked for his I guess it's his cousin or uncle. I think it's uncle. Anyway, but like Ed was a good painter, really good, and he's like an electrician, great carpenter, like he knows
Kinda
all
like
this
jack
stuff.
of all trades.
Jack of all trades, and like a super legit carpenter and electrician.
Yeah.
And however, he never really taught us how to paint because he hated painting a lot. So he never really showed us how to do it. He would just yell at us if we got it wrong.
Oh, okay.
So I still remember the sound of his diesel. He had a Cummins diesel, it was like a Dodge 3500, massive truck.
Okay.
But when you heard that coming, you're like, oh crap, I got to make sure I've got like a brush in my hand, because if you were just standing around, you get yelled at. So to this day, if I hear a diesel motor, I'm like, oh, I got to be doing something. Like, you don't want to get you don't want to get like
Classic conditioning.
you didn't want to get caught
Classic
like just bull crapping around. And sometimes the teachers would actually work with us during the summer to like fill in their time, and they were the worst. Some of them were the worst because they would get used to like teachers, you can stop and chat and whatever, but if you're doing
you get the project
contracting,
done.
like if you don't have something in your hand, you're not doing something, the work's not happening. So like it was, they got chewed out quite a bit too. So from 15 to like 21, I worked in some capacity maintenance, and we did a ton of painting during the summer. And then Josh he kind of crewed, or he was the foreman of the paint crew. So then I got used to, we worked together, and then I became one of the good painters. So we got all the inside stuff and did a lot of
it sounds
interior.
like Josh probably was a better instructor maybe than Ed for
Well,
painting.
no, Josh didn't know what he was doing either. It was all learning on the job.
Oh, you
So-
both started painting the same year. He wasn't ahead of you.
well, he started maybe but he did like other grunt work. It wasn't necessarily painting when
okay.
he first started.
Okay.
So we did all the exteriors of the buildings that one summer. So we got a lot of reps in.
So you kind of learned on the
together.
job. Okay,
Together.
cool.
So, and then you just learn to do it. And this was not like high end painting. I mean, these were repaints of classrooms and things like that. So, and kids would punch holes in the walls and whatever, and then we'd have to fix it and paint it and that kind of stuff. But then, fast forward a bit, Josh and I, we were both in college. He had some different internships, and we were getting close to graduation. He started taking on some side jobs when he was in college, and then would call me in when he needed some extra help, and I would come and paint with him. And then when I was still in college, I was working IT for the same alternative school, and kind of had somewhat of a job offer for continuing forward in IT after I graduated. And Josh got a job offer at his property management firm to go into property management. And then we kept getting more paint jobs. And then when I was, I ended up graduating from Temple, but he was calling me out of class so many times to paint that I just started showing up to class in my paint gear,
That's
like
so
just
funny.
all splattered, and then I would come in, and then my phone would buzz in my pocket. I'd flip it open. I would see like a text message. He's like, "Yo, what are you doing right now?" I'm like, "I'm on my way." And then I would just bounce, because he started taking on these side jobs, and then you start getting more and more work, and you start doing things you haven't done before, and you've got to get you got to get your skills up so that you feel comfortable charging clients. And it was like kind of weird just being out on our own. And then that ended up with me quitting IT to paint with Josh full time when I graduated, and he turned down his property management job after he graduated to also paint full time. And then we ended up getting a commercial account really, really early on through an ad in our church bulletin, which we had no business getting. So, and it was a retirement community, and a really, really high-end retirement
Why do
community.
you say you had no business getting
Because
it?
we had no idea what we were doing. It was not...
So you just felt like you were underqualified to take on the job. at
Right,
the time.
right. I mean, maintenance painting is not the same as like
residential.
or like commercial style. So we, this particular retirement community, I mean, some of those apartments would go for like $500,000. So these are not like cheap apartment
I see.
repaints. And I'll never forget the first time we went in there, because they kind of gave us a trial run to see if we were going to be good. And they gave us one single bedroom apartment to paint. And we didn't know that they didn't have any lights in there. They didn't. It was so like all the lights would come from, people bringing in lamps. And this was a completely vacant unit. We had one light bulb.
Oh dear.
And so we made a thing we called it the shoe light, where I took off my shoe and we stuffed the light like into an extension cord and then like set it in my shoe. And then we'd move my shoe around to see the walls, and it was pitch black in this room.
Wow.
So we ended up painting that room. They really liked it.
That's so funny.
They kept giving us more work, and that was one of the big reasons that that Josh and I could paint full time pretty quickly, because it was one of those things where we just kept saying yes.
Right.
And I mean, I had
Take those jobs.
particularly early on. I mean, we said yes to everything, and then we
Of course,
were
you
a
kind
lot
of
of
have
times,
to
you know,
keep the momentum going.
we were painting 7 days a week. There was a couple months where we painted every weekend. I mean, a lot. So I mean, there was one weekend we painted. I think we did a 14-hour day, an 18-hour day, and a 16-hour day.
Yeah, those are long days.
And then it was a Friday through a Sunday, and then we went back to our commercial account on Monday morning, and then Josh and I were like zombies. Like we started painting, and then we ended up like we both painted the same thing like twice.
Oh, no.
And then we just looked at each other like, yo, I think we just need to go home. And like that's
take a nap.
that's what we did.
Wow.
So, and that's kind of how we got started there. It was kind of, you know, just kept saying yes to stuff.
Yeah,
and
like
we
you had
would-
a little experience with your maintenance job, and then it kind of kept rolling with Josh, and you just kept rolling, and you're like, all right, let's ride this wave.
we kept saying yes to things that we were more or less qualified for. And I mean, we pretty early on, we did a huge repaint where we rented a huge lift. And we're like, you know, booming around on this
my
massive
gosh.
3-story
That
house
scares me.
and, you know, almost killing each other by accident. And, you know, it was a lot of good stories where we did a lot of things where we tied my brother to things. Like
Oh,
if he was
dear.
up on a really, like a ladder, we would like, and the ladder was pitched too steeply, we'd open a window and like tie his belt
Oh my
loop through
gosh,
like a
that's
radiator.
awful.
So like if the ladder swung back, he could just like lean back in.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, a lot of good times. I'm sure I'll probably
Young
I'll
dudes,
start
man.
I'll start bringing in some more of those stories
Yeah.
of stupid things we've done over the years.
Yeah.
But yeah, we just kept pushing, kind of you know, through family, friends, and stuff. We
Mm-hmm.
get hired to do, you know, basic bedrooms and bathrooms, and then what really started some more momentum aside from. We got an insane amount of reps at this commercial
Oh,
account
yeah.
because every time
Turnover,
someone would move in,
changing.
they would repaint.
Yeah.
And I mean, for any painters listening out there, 7012 Creamy from Sherwin-Williams. I've probably painted like thousands of gallons of that paint for sure.
So it was always
For
the
sure.
same color.
It
every
was
single time.
for a long time. That was their
funny.
jam. It was I think the trim paint was untinted. And then the walls were always 7012 Creamy. And
That's funny.
dude, I just can't even tell you how many I've done that. I can walk if someone has Creamy on the, I'm like, oh, that's 7012. And then the clients
You've
are like,
seen it
they're
for
like,
so many
whoa, how do you know that? I'm like, yeah,
Lots of reps.
yeah, it's not
a
my
lot
first
of reps.
rodeo. So, but yeah, so we had, you know, you do a lot of jobs that are awful, particularly in the beginning, and then you kind of start getting a niche and feel like what you are good at. And our progression is we hooked up with some other contractors that were particularly one in our area that does a lot of kitchens and baths, and they don't really sub us out, but what they do is they'll give our card
I
to
see.
their clients, and then a lot of times the clients don't want to have the hassle
Yeah, they don't
of
have to
finding
find
a
anybody
painter
for themselves. They
So-
just take good recommendation.
and we kind of got in with them pretty early on too, and they do pretty high end work. So then our work had to meet the
Yeah.
standard of, you know, a painter can really mess up
Oh, yeah.
the finished product of a really nice bathroom or kitchen or renovation or whatever. So we just
Yeah.
kept upping our skills and upping our game and upgrading like our paint and our brushes
Mm-hmm.
and all the stuff, and kept learning and getting the cut lines good and just figuring it out. And then you know, that we've been painting behind them for about 9 or 10 years now. So
yeah, that's quite some time. I mean, yeah, you've been doing this for a while.
well, Josh and I have been on our own for just over 13 years now.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
And then I've been painting since I was 15, so that's almost 17 years.
Yeah. So you have got some experience.
Yeah.
You are pretty good at what you do.
Yeah, well, and then now we also work behind another company that does a lot of really high-end renovations, and these renovations can be anywhere from like, you know, 100,000 to like 2 million. So it's calling some of the stuff renovations is not quite as you know, it doesn't quite meet what they're
Does
what
not
they're
do
doing.
it justice.
So, you know, it's fun because particularly now that we're well established, we've, you know, and we've gone through phases where, so it used to be I would handle the commercial account and Josh would handle the residential, and then we swapped. midway through, and then now we're in a much better spot where we've got it all figured out, where Josh and I try and paint on the same job site all the time, and then we bring in like really good like master level subs where I'd say like midway through like a year 5 or 6, we really staffed up and we had a lot of guys.
Yeah.
And then what happened a lot of times, we get guys trained up, they'd be pretty good and competent, and then they would leave. And then, it's just that the
turnaround was not very useful to you.
Well, the problem was, by the time they got good, they'd be ready to leave and do something else or whatever. They weren't really in it to win it from our perspective. So we've switched over to having more of a kind of teaming up with other really good painters that are, kind of employed themselves and they have work coming in, but then they really like getting fed good work. And now we're in a really nice segment of the market where I'd say like high-end residential is our kind of bread and butter, or doing, particularly interior residential painting is kind of our jam. And then doing these, it's more like technical painting as far as a lot of woodwork, and the finish level that they are expecting is pretty high. So
yeah, way more than elementary school classrooms from 15-year-olds.
Yeah. I'd say they expect. Although Ed was pretty tough on us back in the day.
That's true. He had quite high standards. Still has high standards.
Yeah. But I would venture a guess that I would be well above meeting his standards at this point in my career. But
Probably.
Yeah. So that's kind of our journey that we're doing, and Josh and I, I'd say too that we've been very fortunate and blessed with certain opportunities that have been presented to us with like these different accounts and things, but it's also the opportunities were always followed up by an insane amount of hustle and work.
Right. It's not like these things just fell into your lap and you did nothing.
Yeah. I mean, I had a lot of weeks where I was working, 80 plus hours of just a brush in my hand, just smashing. So it was a lot of, and early on too, for the first like 5 years, Josh and I were training martial arts super intensely. So it was a lot of Muay Thai and jiu-jitsu, and,
back in the day of the cheat meals,
coming to work with black eyes and being ripped up and stuff. So, it's been a fun little journey, and, contracting, I think there's been a shift with, the trades not being pushed as much on kids, because I think a lot of people don't know the opportunities that are out there for particularly contracting, like in any, like if you're an HVAC or a carpenter, electrician, plumber, painter, there's
a lot of opportunity.
You can do really well, and if you're willing to hustle and pretty much show up when you say you are, and do the things you said you were going to do. And just
be kind about it.
Be kind and reasonable. There's also and in different fields, like HVAC, you can do really well. Plumbing, you can do really well. There's different qualifications. You can't just like start and just start learning. Some require an apprenticeship. And if I had someone actually teaching me how to paint, my skills would have developed differently. Right. But we, Josh and I were fairly intelligent guys, so we figured it out. But and then we had different guys along the ways we pick up stuff from. But and then you learn by making errors and adjusting. You're like, oh, that did not work out at all. Yeah. So, so there's a lot of opportunities out there. I like kind of giving people some perspective on what is available to them, because not everybody, the business. Josh and I both went to college for business, a completely useless degree. So, we were building a small business while we were in college, and I think we were both marketing majors, and they didn't even teach us how to market our small business, and we're like, what is this? So we figured all that out ourselves.
Useless to me.
And a lot of it ended up being like, Josh was really good about making some calls and calling contractors and getting hooked up with some things, but also, as soon as we got that opportunity, we'd jump on it and hammer down and get the job done. And I would just, my weekends were up for grabs every time, because I had zero social life, so it was just painting and fighting for a while.
That's all right.
So. And then one of the things I started doing a couple years ago is I started taking on some more like staining projects. Yeah. So I thought this would be...
That's true. You just did a really cool project.
Yes. So I will expound upon that as far as how I got to that piece of it. So the contractor that we work behind for kitchens and baths, they did a staircase and normal, I think it was like 12 or 13 steps.
Okay.
And the treads were new. And for those who don't know, like the tread is what your foot steps on as you go up the steps. The wood in between is called the riser.
Like the back part
The
where
back
like your
part.
toe would crash into.
Correct.
Okay.
And then the side trim going up the side of the steps.
That looks like a little stair.
Yes, that's called a stringer. So
A stringer.
what I had to do on this job was like stain the treads, and then I also had to like paint in between, paint the riser and paint the stringers. So you've got stained a tread, painted riser, painted stringers, and this is all raw wood. It's
Okay.
It's a brand new staircase.
Absorbs a lot, I presume.
Yeah. So I was like, okay, and I did some research. I talked to some flooring guys. I'd done a little bit of staining before, nothing like that was going to get walked on or things like that, like handrails and things like that.
Yeah.
So they picked out the color. The color was fine, and then I started staining, and I did what I thought was the correct amount of prep by like cleaning
Yeah.
the steps, and just used mineral spirits to kind of get the crap off of it. And this is the learning process.
Yeah.
Was I had done raw wood staining before,
Yeah.
and as I was staining, all these paw prints showed up.
Oh, that wasn't this recent project.
No.
Okay.
This is
Sorry,
this is the first,
the very first big
this is
staining
the
project
first
that you've done.
staircase that I ever did.
Okay.
And we'll talk about the one I just did.
Sorry, I was
loop back.
lost a little bit there. So okay, going back, this is
all
your
right.
first staining project.
Yes,
This makes more sense.
The
to
very
me.
first one.
I remember this one.
So I did the staining, and then as I got I was like, what the hell is this? Like
Why are all these
of
little
these
paw
paw
prints?
prints all over these steps. And I was just like, oh crap, like this is not good. So
Yeah,
I
not
ran
good.
another coat of stain on it, and that didn't do anything.
Uh-oh. Paw
And
print's
the-
still there.
And I'm like, okay. I'm like, well, maybe if this was stupid, and
dear.
in hindsight, as a lot of things are, I ran a coat of polyurethane on there. I'm like, maybe that'll like hide it.
Oh no.
That's
Just sealed it and showed it even more.
Incorrect. So upon further investigation, what had happened is this couple had two kittens.
Oh no.
And they used to bathe the cats upstairs in the tub, and then the kittens would come out of the tub and walk down the steps.
Yeah.
And then they would sit on the steps with their wet little paws, and the oil and the water from their paws seeped into the wood and then raised
no.
the grain of the wood. So then when I went
Because
to
it was such fresh raw wood.
it has no sealant on it or anything. As they sat on it, it opened up the grain, and then when I went to stain it, the part that was opened up pulled more of the stain in. So
so it was darker.
so it was way darker. So then I learned that you really need to do a little bit more prep on the steps. So I had
Like
to
sand it
I had to sand
down.
everything down, and
Oh my gosh,
resized it.
You had to sand down the poly.
I sand everything back down to raw wood, all the steps, all 12 or 13 steps, and then
That's a lot.
it was a lot. So I'd use a power sander and then hand sand a lot of it because you can't get like close to the edges. And then
Oh my gosh.
if there's
Oh, Jeremy.
spindles and stuff, you got to sand around that, and so it was a bummer. But I got it all the way down to the raw wood. I
Made sure they didn't bathe the cats.
resanded it, got everything, and then stained it, and then it all worked out.
Yeah.
And except the only thing I was used to doing like handrails and stuff, and handrails you want to be super smooth. So because like any
no.
like touchable surface, you want to be really smooth.
really smooth,
And
yeah.
when you polyurethane, a lot of times what happens, polyurethane is basically a plastic coating that goes on top of stained wood, and it seals things in. But it has most of its oil base that is, so if it stays open a long time, dust and stuff and particulate gets into it, and it gives it like kind of a rough feel. Like you can feel like the grittiness in it. So most guys, what you really want to do if you're not in a dustless environment, which would be pretty much anywhere except a spray booth, you're going to have sediment and stuff settling in the product. So you sand it out in between each coat. And then what I usually do at the last coat, so if I've done 3 coats, after the third coat, I will sand it down with a quad zero steel wool, which
Okay.
gets everything out.
Makes it super smooth.
Super smooth. And I've started using a little bit of mineral spirits with that, and it's a little bit of a wet sand, not too much because you can like buff the sheen out. And then what I used to do is actually, with the handrails and stuff, I still do. I'll wax them. And
so
you
they're
use
super smooth.
It's Johnson & Johnson paste wax, which smells horrendous. It's hard to find now. I need to order some more on Amazon, but like it gets it so slippery
You did this on the stairs,
because you
Jeremy?
buff it out, and I wax the treads.
No, why would you do that?
Well, I was so pumped that they were like looking good, and I just did my full process.
Oh, no.
And dude, they were like glass. I mean, it was.
That's
it
terrible.
was
Like ice.
Oh,
Just
it was
fall right down the
yeah,
stairs.
Yeah, it was.
Were these older clients?
They weren't too old, but they weren't in the best of shape, I'd
dear.
say. So then what I had to tell them was like, and the wax isn't that big of a deal because it does wear out once you. And most
Once you
people
fall down the stairs a few times.
Well, sometimes when people stain steps, they end up putting a runner, like a carpet
That's
runner,
true.
up the middle.
That's true.
Which I don't know if they were or not, but I had to tell them, I was like, hey, listen, these steps are real smooth, so like don't either go up in shoes or bare feet.
Yeah,
Do
no
not
sock
go up
feet.
in socks because they were pretty steeply pitched. So
Oh my gosh.
yeah, and I think I did that right after. It might have been right after back surgery. I think is when
Wow.
I did that steps. Anywho, so,
Yikes.
so that'll bring us up to this.
Hopefully no one's fallen down those steps.
I'm sure they're fine.
Well, or they have once and then they remember. Wear the shoes.
There's
Something
handrails.
with treads.
Handrails,
with
it's fine.
grips.
So then I just did a staircase this past week.
Yeah,
and,
this is the one I was talking about.
I had a little bit of. Sometimes I don't enjoy doing the staining because it takes me away. Like you've got to do so many applications, and a lot of times it separates me from Josh because he's on another job site, and then I have to keep showing up in the morning to do coat after coat. And and I'm sure if other painters are hearing this, when the client picks the stain and they're matching the wood floor, and you've got to stain end caps or like handrails and then like newel posts and stuff, the handrails, because it's different wood than the treads, take the stain differently.
Oh.
So then,
Yeah.
and then for whatever reason, the Benjamin Moore that I used to get the stain matched, they used gel stain. It was like the only stain they could get to match the mix we were looking for, which the contractor had already worked that out with the client. Everybody was happy with it. So when I went to stain the steps, that did not look anywhere close to what the handrails and then the wood floor that you're trying to match was. But then, so I called around. I talked to my one sales guy and who actually knows quite a bit about staining, and I applied the gel stain as he's like, you can kind of get it right on the steps. And then when I did that, and I did it a little bit differently than how I normally do it because it's a gel stain.
Yeah, which is a little different.
Very thick. It's like a mayonnaise consistency.
Wow, weird.
Yeah.
Like you're spreading honey.
It's not quite, it's more, it really is like mayonnaise. Like that kind of fluffy, like weirdness
Weird.
of it. Yeah.
Interesting.
But it dried weird. So then I had to
Oh no.
I had to use mineral spirits to.
Staining stuff is way more complicated than you think it would be.
It's a little bit different than painting for sure.
Yeah.
And then finally, so I ended up like getting off all the access with mineral spirits, and then I had to resand because it was looking splotchy. So I resanded with 220 and 150, and then I resand. So I ended up doing like 3 coats of stain on it, and then 3 coats of polyurethane sanding between. But now what I do at the very end, all I do is a little sand with the Quad Zero steel wool, a little bit of mineral spirits, and then I leave it a little bit not rough, but it's
but not glass.
not glass, because I found if you sand everything out and it's wicked smooth, if they're not putting a runner over it,
Yeah,
I mean,
that's too dangerous.
It's pretty dangerous. So it used to be like when I would detail cars. That was my first job at this alternative school when I was 13, technically an independent contractor.
I see.
But I would detail their big passenger vans, 15 passenger vans, and they wanted the insides armor-alled, and I would armor-all the steering wheel, which is super slippery.
You can't hold it.
Yeah, and then they had to be like, hey,
that part.
van man, you can't do that. So,
Bad idea.
but anyway, and it turned. I'll post a picture on the Painter and the Pixie.
Yeah, those stairs looked fantastic.
They look insanely good, and this particular set of staircases goes from a basement up to this client's collection of supercars.
Yeah,
so
it's amazing. I didn't realize that's where this was, and I was like, oh wow, when I saw your
some
picture.
very, very nice Ferraris, and he's got a Lambo in there and some other stuff. It's
Very cool.
pretty gangster. So my finished work had to be on point, and we also painted the whole garage. So it was a pretty cool project to be a part of.
Very
but
cool.
I was very excited pleased with my results as I towards kind of see. It's nice to see your skills compound, and you're like, oh, I can figure this out, and I know how to do it. And now
Like
it
it wasn't,
awesome.
it didn't take you as many retries and steps like the cat steps did. You kind of said, okay, let's readjust and let's get there and accomplish the goal, and it still looks great. It looks really, really good.
Yep.
Yeah, awesome. Very
So,
cool.
There's a little history lesson.
Yeah,
with,
thanks for
the
sharing,
painter
Jeremy,
and
the
some of my
painter.
experiences. But so we're in a good spot, and it's been overall a pretty cool experience. We've gotten to be in a lot of really neat houses
Yeah,
now, and
you've seen a lot of houses, a lot of different people,
Hundreds
a lot
and
of
hundreds.
walks of life.
Yep. Well, and we've also, I think also contracting can be a way into some other circles that people
Mm-hmm.
might, you can leverage a lot of your relationships with clients and contacts that you make and, learning the business. And,
Yeah.
I'm friends with a whole bunch of different contractors too. So,
Mm-hmm.
when we go to do our house and stuff, I am very familiar
A
with
lot of people to choose from to say, hey, help us with this, help
right
us with that.
right and just knowing how to pick good crews and run a job site, so you get a lot of good experience. I think it can be, even if you didn't want to have a kind of go from start to finish through your career and retire from contracting at the end of your days.
Yeah.
It can be a really good stepping stone into something else. Josh and I, we've had we've gone in on investment deals with
Yeah.
property and stuff
Yep.
with people that were former clients or current clients. And
Right.
that can be, you can get connected into some other
Well, when
areas.
you have, what you just said, connected, when you've got connections with so many different people, especially the circles that you're kind of running in a little bit more on the higher end, there's a lot of doors that can open. There's a lot of pathways that you can kind of walk down, especially because you guys are awesome and very kind. I keep coming back to the kind thing because I've worked with people and contractors and things in the past that have been very abrasive, very rude. You're like, are you going to just steal my stuff? You have no idea what's going to happen when you let them in your house, and you're like, okay. But you guys are awesome and trustworthy, and people like talking to people like that,
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
And you like talking. You like talking to people.
I
People
do.
like talking to you.
Yeah.
Which is very helpful.
Oh, it's fun. And, you learn quite a bit, and you also, realize too that I paint people's bathrooms. I've seen the
Yeah.
inside of all the rooms in their homes. So
Yeah.
you breach this level of, for lack of a better term, intimacy
Yeah.
with your client, because
It's a
you're
level of trust.
you're in their space. So the more trustworthy you are, the more
Mm-hmm.
dependable you are, the more comfortable you want to make them. You even have a different if you think about, we've painted in a bunch of different
Mm-hmm.
high-level CEOs' homes and things like that. Their workers, the people
Yeah.
that are employed by them or work under them, generally don't get to see
Yeah.
the inside of their homes. Where you're in their house, you get to see their dog and their cats and
Yeah.
their kids, and when their kids come home, and all this stuff where you normally wouldn't have access to that type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very important to be responsible and trustworthy and all that stuff, because you want everyone to feel comfortable. But
Yeah.
it's fun. You get to learn quite a bit and see quite a bit, and get access to some things you might otherwise not have gotten
Yeah.
access to. Also, too, with contracting, we just talked about being respectable and whatnot, but if you're really good, you can be an absolute wingnut. Because if you're super good at something, particularly in, I'm not going to call anybody out, but I know some dudes that are really good at trades that other people don't want to do, and they're absolutely insane. but even the clients are happy to put up with them
Because they do such a good job.
such a good job. And there's not a lot of that in like, corporate America is very PC, very buttoned down. You have to kind of fit more into a particular mold of behavior.
Yeah.
Where in contracting, you get some like cowboys. Like you get a fun mix of dudes that are crazy experiences, but if you're good, if you're truly good and like a master of your skill, people give you a lot of latitude in how you behave. So
Yeah, but not like super crazy. Like people aren't going around, murdering cats. Like not that kind of crazy. You mean like eccentric?
Eccentric or ornery, or it just depends on
Less refined.
Well, we have guys that are, like the GC will be like, go to the client and be like, hey, look, we're gonna bring in this guy. He's not the best with people, but he's awesome at like X, Y, and Z. Yeah. And so the client will be like, oh, okay, cool.
Well, you prep them. You get them, you give them a heads up, and then they know what they're expecting.
But my point is there's way more room for differing personalities within the trades.
Yeah, that's true.
And it can be a lot of fun, particularly if you get in a good, you work with people that you really like. And, for me, it's being on the job site with Josh. That's really what I enjoy.
Yeah, you guys make a fantastic team.
So, and it's a formula we finally kind of figured out, and we're moving forward on some other projects, and we kind of want to help out some other folks that are getting started in contracting and thinking about going that way. So we're working on a few projects, and that'll be fun, kind of leveraging our knowledge that we have gathered over the years, in our own humble way.
Yeah.
So, but there you go.
Well, thanks for sharing, Jeremy. That was very interesting. There's some of those little stories, like I don't even remember all of those, but
I have a lot. What's funny is like I don't generally talk about my day that much with painting. With
you don't. I always have stories about clients and people and interactions and things, and you never really give me that much. You're like, yeah, I painted. Yeah, there's this cool supercar. Yeah, look at these stairs. Yeah. But it's like you don't tell me stories about interacting with people very often.
It's just
you kind of don't do. I mean, you do interact with people frequently, but it's not like the same level that when I interact with clients, I'm like, there's constant conversation happening in my world.
Yeah.
And sometimes when you're just painting, you're not talking to people.
Well, I just give you the highlights.
Yeah.
It's, most of the time, I'm just smearing goo on the wall.
It's true.
So Josh and I say we're some of the best goo smearers around.
Yeah, that's funny.
But yeah, so it's all good. We give you the highlight. Like, see, the funny stories are when someone like falls off a ladder or something. That's like where it's exciting. So.
Yeah. Or like you suddenly find these strange paw prints showing up all over
That was
the
not
stairs.
funny. I didn't enjoy that at all.
Now it's funny. I think it's funny now.
Yeah.
But back when it happened, you're like, what the heck? How come
Oh, man. I was like, what is going on? But now I understand more about how wood actually behaves.
Who would have thought of that? I would never have thought, I better make sure that these people haven't bathed their cats and they haven't sat on the steps to make sure that there's no more open grain here. Like, I never would have thought of those things. I mean, maybe think, okay, let's sand this first, make sure we're even or level, but it's just so funny.
And that's the moral of the story. If anyone's working on new wood or raw wood, a lot of what usually happens now is they will leave some sort of covering on the steps, and then I'll take it off right when I'm ready to stain.
That makes sense.
Also, you want to sand everything even, usually with like 120 or 150. Again, that's just the way I do it.
Yeah.
A lot of people do it differently, and that's totally fine. There are a lot of ways to do that, but you want to prep everything so that everything's even Steven, and the grain is opened up the same across all of the treads, which is the moral
kind
of
of the
that
key
lesson.
there when you want the product to absorb evenly.
Right. So, but yeah.
You live
so
and learn. You got it.
That's
now
what's
you know.
what. And let's see. We're gonna transition to our next topic, right?
Yeah. What did you have for us?
I thought it was, so we did the painting stuff.
Yeah.
And then one of the other things you've done a lot of dog training.
I have.
So you wanted to talk a little bit about something you've been working on with Mr. Gus.
Okay, sure,
Who's casually going at his
peanut butter,
peanut butter Kong right now. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that's pretty fun. I was thinking about your cat thing. And cats, you can train cats. I watched this thing on TV the other day that was about training cats, or YouTube or something. And I'm like, I'm glad I'm working with dogs. Dogs are way easier to train than cats. But I had a fun conversation with one of my clients the other day, actually, about training dogs. And I thought this is actually a really fun tip to share with other people. So I am kind of really big on having some ground rules for people's pets. I'm not like picky. I don't get mad at people when they don't do this. But even for me, I think I have like a standard, a level for pets that dogs kind of should behave. You want them to be pleasant members of your family, right? You don't want them to be totally unruly and go nuts
Right.
and pee on everybody who comes in the house, you know?
Yeah. Or maul them.
Or maul them,
Whatever.
or you want them to be fun and happy. And dogs, in my experience, I've had a little bit of experience. I've worked with Gus. I've worked with a couple of other dogs before that for some very specific training skills. And one thing that I think is really important for dogs to be able to know is to leave it.
Yeah.
Do not touch something when I don't want you to touch it.
Yeah.
Right? It's very important. Not only is it helpful for you if you like drop something and you don't want them to, go eat it, food or otherwise, but it can save their life. If they're going after something that is poisonous, and they don't know about it, like if they're eating, whatever mousetrap, rat poison, whatever, like you don't want them to go after it. It could be harmful for them. They need to know, don't do that. So you can turn it into a really fun game. That's what I like to do. It's like dogs are brilliant. Even if you think you have a dumb dog, they're just dumb in that area. You know what I mean? They just, they don't know. Their dogs are really, really smart. You can train any dog to do this, and by making it a game. So leave it is a really popular command, but with our boy Gus over here, I try to keep things more simple too. And he just knows the word no.
Mm-hmm.
No means do not do any of the things.
Right.
Right? Just stand there and be
Yeah,
still.
Stop doing
Stop
things.
doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
So, but you can also use leave it. With our first dog, Remy, he just knew leave it. I mean, that's the word he knew. So anyway, we practice with food. Whenever Gus gets food, he has to work for his food. He's a working dog and he works for his food. So he doesn't just get free food. It's not like we have a bowl and we say, okay, here's breakfast, here's lunch, here's dinner, whatever.
Right.
He needs to do things to know I've earned that reward. And dogs love this. They love this little game that you can play. So with Leave It, one of the easiest ways to teach Leave It is to have a food, a kibble, a treat, whatever you've got, and you have it in your hand, and you want to kind of put it in the palm of your hand so that you can close your fist and they can't take it away from you.
Right.
Right? So with Gus, I have his food in his hand, and you hold it out in front and you say, no, or you say, leave it. And if they go towards the treat, close your hand. They can't access the food.
Yeah.
If, though, they leave it, even for just a second, they look up at you instead of trying to grab the food, close the hand, say good boy, click, click, give them a reward. Give them a different reward.
Right.
Right? So you have two treats, one in your right hand, for example, one in your left hand. The reason for this switch, you don't give them the treat that you have shown them, that you told them not to take, is so that they understand, I just don't touch whatever you tell me not to touch, and I get a better reward for doing that.
Right.
Right? So you might have a piece of kibble in your hand and you tell them no. You tell them leave it. Then they get a reward of a piece of cheese, right? Something that's way more high value than that kibble. It's a really nice way for them to build anticipation. So when you tell them no, they're not just like, well, I'm going to sneak this away from you. They know I've got something better coming if I don't take that little kibble. That dinky kibble means nothing to me.
Right.
Because something better's on the way.
I gotcha.
Right?
Yeah, he's funny because I've done this with him too, and I do it how I have done it with my past dogs, which have been Australian Shepherds. Like,
They're a bit more intense than a Lagotto.
I'll put like a piece of cheese down or whatever it is,
Yep.
and I'll claim it. I'll be like, this is mine, and they get close, and I'm like, I was doing Caesar Milan style for a while, which I still do. Like that's not like I get them to stop.
Yeah, like you make that sound, which means no.
Yep. And so they learned that, and I've done that with Gus. But with Gus, he's so much different because what he does, he gets close to it,
I know.
and then he looks away. Like he won't look at it. He's just like,
He has to distract himself.
it's hilarious. but I've never he's super close, and he'll when he lays down, I'll put it right in between his paws,
between his two paws?
and I'll be like, and I'm like no, and then he just. And then he'll look all around. It's so funny
Because he knows.
Yeah, it's like if he looks at it, he doesn't have the discipline
it's
to
like
not
he
eat it.
doesn't
So he's just like tricking himself and being like, nothing's there.
Yeah.
So it's adorable.
It is adorable. It's the best. It's so fun. But you can do that with all sorts of things. With dogs who are really toy aggressive and stuff, you can do that with anything. Claiming it is a really good way to say that. The thing that you have told him no to is mine. You don't get that thing.
Right.
So this is even to the point where sometimes I'll give him his food. He does his tricks. He earns his reward, and he sits next to it and he looks all around. Yeah. can't take it. Can't take it.
Yeah. Well, I used to do this with my Aussies too. Is that I would I'd feed them and then I would claim the bowl and I would make them wait before they ate, and then I would even take the food away from them while they were eating.
Yep.
And it's, I mean, you're way better at training animals than I am, but I've raised a few puppies, but like, it's really important, at least from my perspective, to start doing this when they're super
when
young.
they're young.
Because, I mean,
so that they don't have a notion of like, my food, you get away from my food.
3 of the Aussies have been like 70 pounds, so it's a big dog.
Big dog.
But when they're tiny, you can, I always put my hands in their mouth, and I would put my hands all over their muzzle while they were eating, and doing that kind of stuff. Like,
You're
and
kind
then
of desensitizing them.
right. So, because you don't want a dog, if you get near their food, to snap at you.
Yeah,
And,
no way.
Fun fact, one of the most one of the most food aggressive dog breeds is?
No. Would you want to give me a hint? Can I guess?
Do you want to guess?
Yeah, can you give me a hint besides most food aggressive? Big, little, big, medium?
Medium to largish.
Medium to largish, short hair, long hair.
Long hair.
Long hair?
I'll give you. I'll give you 3 more questions.
Oh no. Is it a dog that I would know the name of, the
Right.
breed?
Yes.
Is it common? A common breed?
It's not. It's not super common.
Okay. So
Like, you would definitely have heard of it, but you would not be crazy common.
I'm going to say Irish setter.
Correct.
Yes.
Nailed it.
Awesome.
What made you jump to Irish Setter?
I was thinking long hair, and the only 2 long-haired, medium-sized dogs I could think of was an Afghan hound, which is very rare, and you didn't say very rare, so I'm like, okay, maybe an Irish setter.
Yeah, it's like medium rare.
Yeah, medium rare. Like, I've seen maybe 2 around in Doylestown. But...
Yeah, Irish Setters are notoriously food aggressive.
Wow, interesting.
Yeah, which is weird because people have had legitimate issues where it's like, oh, it's such a pleasant dog, and then you get it around food and it's just like, grrr, and
That's mine.
Goes bananas.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So they need to do some claiming games, some of those things
Yeah.
with these dogs
Yeah.
from a young age. Make sure that they understand.
Well, it's you were talking about certain expectations of people's
Yeah.
pets.
Yep.
It's very interesting because here's another little contracting nugget.
Oh yeah, this is good.
I don't know how it would behoove my fellow contractors to really know, even if you're not a dog person, you should really know some dog etiquette.
Yeah, for sure.
And some questions I always ask when I go into a new house that I don't know the homeowners or whatever. I ask them if they have any cats and if they're indoor outdoor cats, because you do not want to let
Yeah,
an
you
indoor
don't.
cat outdoors. That can ruin your day and ruin the job, and you will not get any
Ooh,
referrals
that's
from
no
them.
Good.
So
Good thought. I wouldn't have thought of that.
yeah, well, because they're like, some of the cats are like little, prisoned convicts, like waiting for a chance
waiting
to
to
bolt.
escape.
So, and a lot of guys will prop doors open and stuff, bringing in supplies
True,
or whatever.
or letting the air move or whatever.
Yeah, so
Oh, my.
it's something to think about. I actually got not attacked is a strong word, but there was these 3 hilarious cats at this job site I was just on. Not the staircase, different one. But I was painting, and they had one of those cat towers, and
Yep.
so it was painting like literally. I was painting. The cat was
The cat was
the cat was painting.
Thanks for clarification, Jeremy.
But the cat was chilling in its little tower, and I think its name was Lizzie. It was either Lizzie or Margot. Anyway. Doesn't matter. Margot was the other one, but it was I was painting, and they're tracking the movement of the brush.
Of course, yeah, they're watching.
And then it just swatted on
my
my
gosh.
sleeve, and it caught its claws.
Yep.
Like, oh man, and I was like, let go, Miss Kitty bite. And so, but and it was a swatting at my brush, and then that one was Margot. That was the calico that attacked me, and then Lizzie got like pink all over her front face. So we've had pink paint, and then if a lot of times, like, people have pets, they'll let the dogs go wherever.
Right,
So it
they don't
would
realize.
behoove you to have good dog etiquette as far as like, don't stare it in the eyes, how you approach
Yeah,
a new
I am
dog.
shocked. I'm totally cutting you off right now, but I'm shocked how many people don't understand how to greet a dog or the basic concepts of dog etiquette.
Yeah, particularly a dog you do not know and haven't
Particularly a
met
dog you
before.
don't
It's
know.
not. This isn't like
Yeah.
etiquette on how to greet your dog.
Right, but this
Yeah.
is like, if you've never met a dog, you can't just go up to it and start screwing with it. You can't just go pet it in the face. You can't. It's because I've mentioned Gus is a working dog. He is out with me in public places, and I'm
Yeah.
always shocked at how many people. Well, okay, a lot of people do know well. They're fine. It says do not distract,
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
They know that, but so many people just come up and start petting the dog, or they'll come up and go into his face, and it's like he has had hours and hours and hours, many hours of training and desensitization so that he's not going to do anything crazy. But you don't know this dog. You have no idea.
Right.
Why would you get up in a brand new dog's face and like just start making cooing noises and like fluffing its face?
Yeah,
Like,
well, I'll give a little
bad
bit
news,
a
bad
more
idea.
a more common way people would interact, like from a contractor's experience. You're not greeting people's dogs that are out on leads. You go into someone's home,
Yeah.
the dog's not contained at all,
Right.
and it comes up to you. You don't want to just lunge like, or so a lot of times what I do is I don't even. This is all like kind of Caesar Milan
Mm-hmm.
type stuff, but I will maintain eye contact with the homeowner.
yeah. Don't make eye contact with the dog.
Let the dog settle, and then you don't. Also, I'm really comfortable around dogs.
Yeah.
But then what I'll do is once the dog settles down a little bit, then I'll squat down,
Mm-hmm.
but not face it full on. I'll present like my side,
like your shoulder,
which is
your
less
side
aggressive,
profile,
and then
not
it usually
leaning over.
it'll come up and kind of nuzzle my hands, and then but
Let
also
it make the first move.
Yeah.
See if you check you out.
yeah.
Because eye contact can be really like a threat. It can be aggressive to dogs.
Yeah.
Dogs don't really do eye contact with anything. And so when they do have eye contact in the wild, that's a threat. That's
Right.
like, I'm going to... Oh, sorry. So, out air. You can beat that out.
Nice.
So,
nice.
sorry about that.
See the timestamp on that. Yeah.
Check it out.
About-
It's
yep.
so fast forward. Okay, moving on. So it's not a good idea to make eye contact, to stare a dog down. Even a friendly dog, you don't know how they're going to interpret that signal. And then a lot of people will come straight on forward to the dog and bend over.
Yeah, that's
and
what I-
get
that's-
right over top of it
that's
and
what I was
right in
gonna
its
say.
space. That is absolutely threatening to a dog as well.
The cartoonish way to pet a dog
gosh.
is always like hitting it on the head.
Yeah, like a pat.
Which is not great for a couple like particularly when you lean over a dog like
Yeah.
that, you're bending at the waist and coming into its space.
Yeah, over its head most
Super
of the time.
aggressive, particularly if you consider how big you are to
Yeah.
the dog. Even if it's a relatively large dog, you're
Yeah.
probably at least twice its size.
Yeah.
And then also dogs don't like it when the hand is going in and
Oh my
out
gosh,
of
yeah.
their field of view.
Yeah.
So because they can't see things right above their head. So anyway, that's a way to get
Yeah.
bit, and
way to get bit.
It which doesn't because particularly when I meet a dog for the first time, it's
Yeah.
almost always on a quote, which is the first time I've met the client too. So it's just
Yeah.
consider looking into that.
Yeah,
So
no,
first.
these are really great tips. I think that's fantastic. Especially the most well-trained dog can still have a bad day. You can still startle it. You can
Yeah.
make eye contact. You can come right into its space and seem like you're being aggressive. And oftentimes people do this noises,
Amping it up. Yeah.
amping it up, which is like amping up the dog's energy, but also like can be startling.
Yeah.
If a dog hears squealy noises in the wild, something's getting eaten. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Well, that's why they like that's what they like squeaky toys. It's
Yeah.
actually mimicking a distressed animal squealing.
Right.
So I've heard my dogs catch my old dog catching rabbits.
Yeah.
Those things squeal just
They
like a
do.
squeaky toy.
Yep. Yeah. So calm energy. Do not come at the dog straightforward. Do not make eye contact with a dog. Let the dog make the first move to sniff you.
Yeah.
Most dogs, if the parents, puppy parents, right, are like allowing you to interact with the dog, usually it's fine. They're like pretty well behaved, decently. They're not
Yeah.
worried the dog is going to rip your throat out.
Right.
But like just a couple of basic strategies, really simple rules can make the experience so much more enjoyable for you and the dog.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
And-
remember you telling a story once about a dog who was like, I forget, skittish or something. And everyone was like, how did you do this? This dog never comes up to people on one of your job sites.
oh, I've had it a bunch of times.
Yeah. And they're like, how could this dog like runs away from everybody? Why is it coming up to you?
I generally am very, I don't want to toot my own horn here, but I'm pretty good with dogs.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I enjoy them, and I'm also fairly good at interacting with them. So,
Yeah.
but they're not hard to read too. A lot of times they're, so keep in mind, a lot of the houses we paint in, no one's home. So
Yeah.
sometimes you're just there and it's you and the dog. But there's one, let it out and play with,
Yeah.
throw balls to it and whatever. If it's okay with the client and
Right.
all. But I've had quite a few dogs that have been like quote unquote aggressive,
Mm-hmm.
and I just kind of I didn't put up with their crap. I didn't acknowledge like when they were going nuts,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
and then gradually they would then they start following you around.
Mm-hmm.
But I will say too that puppies are a whole different ball game.
Yeah.
And we've had a few experiences. My brother had one where the homeowner wasn't home. It was a German Shepherd puppy.
Oh, yeah. I remember
It was a
this.
couple months old, and he was painting something with blue paint, and he had the the pan out. So it's a big rolling pan with about a gallon of paint in it. And the puppy came over, and they hadn't contained it at all, which is an important piece of the story, particularly if it's a puppy. So just sometimes it would also be a good idea to at least contain the animal in a section of the house you're not working in,
Good idea.
particularly if you have materials that can be problematic, which you'll see in a second. So my brother saw where the dog was. He's like, hey, buddy, what's up? And then the dog put both of its front paws in the deep side of the pan.
Oh, no.
So up to its, dog ankles, it was soaked in blue paint.
Paint.
And then Josh goes, and this was a fairly new house.
Gosh.
And like brand new hardwood floors,
No.
all of that. And Josh goes, hey, who's a good boy? Come here. Don't and then
run.
as he's getting closer to the dog starts to, invite him to play.
Bows
down, tail starts going. He's like, no, be a good boy. And then it just goes, ha, and just takes off and is sprinting in circles around this house. And there's just blue paint everywhere. I mean, this thing's just hauling ass through the house. And
Another good reason to have dog etiquette. No. Stand still. Don't do anything.
and then Josh finally caught it. And, it's a puppy, so it's not, it's whatever.
Hey,
so
8-week-old puppies know these things. You can teach them.
Cleaned off his paws, and he was like a juvenile. He was probably like several months. So, he was fast.
Yeah.
I mean,
Oh,
German Shepherd, a
German Shepherd?
6-month-old German Shepherd can move. So, he got it cleaned off, and then he spent the whole day just cleaning up the hardwood
paint
floor.
everywhere.
And then the
Oh my
homeowners
gosh.
come like, hey, why did, the puppy's got blue. Josh was like, yeah, funny story. Not so funny. Here's what happened.
Yeah, and that's so it's funny to me that homeowners don't think I should leave my puppy out of the work area, like so it can't access the work area.
I mean, sometimes it's super common. So
Yeah,
it's just sometimes they don't think because
it's like your home and you don't think about it. I guess.
usually what they're thinking is he's not aggressive, so it's fine.
Yeah.
Not that they're gonna get into
things.
it. But my first Aussie Deke, we were painting my parents' house, and he stole roller covers and would run away and all kinds of stuff.
It's a big fun game.
Yeah,
all these
well,
toys.
They're just having
new
a good
smells.
having a good time. So, well, I think we covered the things.
Yeah.
You happy with that?
Yeah, I think that's pretty good. I think we should include a little more dog tips here and there. They're fun. I think it's like maybe I think I'll do a video for you guys on YouTube or Instagram of the Leave It.
All right.
With Gus.
Yeah.
I think that'll be really fun. We'll
Yeah,
use
that'll
a
be
couple of things, toys and treats and food.
Yeah. I like that.
Yeah.
And they can see what he looks like as he's looking away from things.
I know, it's so cute. Well, and it's what I love about that command is the dog learns when you say no, something better comes. That's the whole point, is to make sure that they know that, because oftentimes when you're playing this Leave It game, the dog thinks it's a game of how can I get this away from you without you knowing? Like, how can I take it from you faster?
Right.
But they have to understand that's not the game. The game is you leave it alone when I tell you to leave it alone, and you get something better.
Right.
Because a lot of people, like I said, they kind of skew the game by accident, and they make it like, oh, they snatched it, they took it away. They don't. If Gus, back at the beginning, when he would snatch food, I open his little mouth, pull that food right back out. He does not get it.
Yeah.
He does not get it.
I always liked doing duration stays.
Yes.
Where I would
do that too.
I'd put the bowls down with my two dogs back in the day, and then they would have to sit in their crates with the food right in front of them.
Yep.
And then I would release them, but I could hold them for minutes.
Yep.
And it didn't matter. Like, they would just stare at me and be like, and I got it to the point where I could walk out of the room.
Yep.
And then I would yell like, okay, eat up, boys. Eat up, boys was always my
cue.
release. And then they would be like,
Yeah. Yeah,
So-
that's great too. Another one that I do, the duration stuff like that builds self-control in the dog. And that's where if you had done some of these things with that blue pod puppy, they would know you would say no, or you would say stay or whatever, and they wouldn't move. They would understand the concept.
Yeah, maybe. So
Maybe.
yeah.
If your two boys could sit there and have their food right in front of them while you're out of the room, like, you can build that level of
Yeah,
skill.
well, some puppies are just bored and they want to play, particularly leave them out in the house. But anyway,
So, but the other fun thing to do, you mentioned this earlier about like messing with the dog's food. like while they're eating so that they don't get food aggressive. With Gus, what he'll do when he's eating, if he eats a meal that's more of a meal rather than little pieces of things, I'll say no in the middle and he sits up and he looks away. So I like start and stop him. So he knows, even if I've given you the okay and I decide you can't have any more of this for this moment for whatever reason, he still listens.
Gotcha.
That's a good one too.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that'll be a fun video. I'll do that one later.
Good stuff. All right. She's committed to a video, folks. It's going up on Instagram.
Try it out.
And I will say one more thing. I was watching some documentaries and stuff this week, but I've noticed a pattern with a lot of people's success. And we were talking about this a little bit with my contracting experience, is that as you start working in a field, opportunities will present themselves. And it's not so much about, like, those opportunities will happen as your skills as you get better and more refined, and your capacity for like different types of work increases, like the opportunities will open up.
Yeah.
But then it seems like that you push and push and push and push, and then you get an opportunity where you're like, oh, I can get a lot of reps of this, or I can super, super hustle. And it's knowing that almost all opportunities entail an incredible amount of work. So it's like getting to that point, and then when you have the opportunity to hammer down, then it's like that's where huge strides can be made. And I've seen it with, I was thinking about like Jerry Seinfeld. I've been watching some of his stuff, and I know a lot about him, but he did Seinfeld the show, which was I'm pretty sure it's the most successful sitcom ever.
Really? Interesting.
Yeah, like ever. I'm fairly certain. And he made gobs of money on that. But that show is an insane amount of work.
Oh, yeah.
But it set him up for the rest of his life to do pretty much whatever he wants. But it was a lot of hustle up until that point. So it's like you work and work and work, and hopefully as you get more competent, more efficient, all of these things, and then you get presented with something, it's pulling the trigger on it, and then just working your balls off in that, and like knowing
Hustle.
that it's like, it's almost like your day in the sun. Like you just gotta, hammer down and get it done. I've just noticed a lot of stories have been like that, where people have been hustling for a long time.
Yeah.
They get an opportunity, and when they capitalize on that opportunity, it's not just like a lucky break, because then you have to absolutely hammer down and smash. So
Right. It didn't just fall into their laps. A lot of
Yeah.
times we kind of see these stories on TV and movies and stuff where it's like, this magical opportunity just showed up. And like, my whole life is made now.
yeah,
But, well, right, we see those things. But I like what you said. It's basically, those opportunities appear because you're working towards those types of things, right? You see them when you're working towards them, and then you can make them happen. You get in the hole, get in the pocket, and make it work.
Yeah. And a lot of times your skills are good enough to get you in the door, and you're going to definitely have to work on some more. Like a lot of times on things where we've gotten in over our heads, we've developed, it's my brother calls it, it's not his phrase, but it's like just-in-time learning. Like you learn stuff when it is immediately needed. And there's so many ways to do that now. And so I would just say any of my compadres in the contracting, entrepreneurial, or business owning world, like keep pushing, keep smashing, keep doing what you got to do. And then when those opportunities come, like see it for what it is, and then know, like, just go for it.
Yeah. Yeah, sounds good.
So that was my little nugget that I was been mulling over and marinating on this week of getting yourself in the position to get those opportunities and then have the capacity to push hard into them when you do get them. So
yeah, I like it.
There we go. There's the show, folks.
And that is it for us, folks. Thanks for listening to our show today. Thanks for being a part of our experience. This episode of the podcast, as well as all of our others, can be found, as always, on iTunes, on Stitcher, on Google Play, and on YouTube if you feel like you want to kind of sit in our living room with us while we chat.
The YouTube.
It's kind of fun. You can find our show notes on our website, which is thepainterandthepixie.com. And I believe I'm also starting to copy them onto YouTube, so you can find our show notes there too.
Correct.
For show updates and for fun videos like we talked about in our show today, you can follow us on Instagram, which is at The Painter and The Pixie.
And that is going to do it for us this week. Thank you guys very much for hanging out with us for a little bit.
Yeah.
Hope you have a most pleasant week. and hopefully the Eagles have won.
Yes.
And
We
if they
don't
did
know
not,
yet.
sorry for everybody's loss. But until next week, y'all stay out of trouble. Have a good one, and we'll talk to you later.
Bye.
Peace.
Amazing.